Have you ever asked yourself the question, why do I put up with this? Or have you ever had a girlfriend who's asked you, why do you put up with this? Then today's episode is definitely for you. We're going to be talking about tolerations and what's healthy and what's unhealthy to tolerate in a relationship or even in dating. Stay tuned. So have you ever asked yourself, why do I put up with this stuff? Why do I tolerate this bullshit, quite frankly, in this relationship? If you've asked yourself that question, you must tune into today's episode because that is exactly what we're talking about. We are talking about the 3 different types of tolerations. Why people tolerate things, what you used to tolerate in the past that you won't tolerate anymore, and what you might be willing to tolerate that maybe you would never have tolerated in the past. So this is all going to be explored today in a way that we don't judge ourselves and we're not judging anybody else. How many times maybe have you and your girlfriend sat around saying, why does she put up with that? She deserves better. Well, we all do, and there are reasons why we quote unquote tolerate certain things. I talk a lot about this GPS model that I have, and that's grounding, preparing for love, and stepping forward. G, grounding, P, preparing for love or positioning, and S, stepping forward or steering. And this grounding part, or getting clear about what it is you really want or need, is part of today's topic, because talking about what you tolerate or not tolerate and being clear about that, what you're willing and not willing to deal with, will really help you feel more grounded in your dating journey. So let's get into it. Let's assume you plug something into your GPS and you say, I want to go to this address because I've never been there. GPS, help me out. Shirley, Vanessa, whatever you call your GPS. Some people have names for their GPS. I don't. And then all of a sudden she says to you, recalculating. Well, essentially that's what we're doing here in the therapeutic work that we're all doing by just listening to this podcast or watching it and doing the journal prompts. And I'll offer you one today as well at the end of today's episode. By doing the actual work, you are consciously recalculating, saying, that road that I was going down with my ex-husband or ex-wife was not working for me. And that's part of why the marriage ended, whether I ended it or they ended it. I need to recalculate and very consciously choose, which road do I want to go down? And the more I understand about myself, the easier that will be. So when you get clear, you will change the quality of people that you attract and that you choose to date. Somebody that you might have chosen to date maybe a month after you got divorced or a year after you got divorced might be very different 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. I have a very close friend who, when I was newly divorced, she would always say, Stacey, it's going to take 5 years before you really get back to who you are and feel grounded. And I thought, oh my God, shoot me now. 5 years. Like, that's a long time. Well, I've been divorced almost 13, I think, 14. I lost track, but it's over 10 years. And there's truth in what she said to me. The truth being that the more work we do on ourselves, the more clear we become, the more grounded we are, the easier it is to stay in a lane and not get distracted by all that's out there to distract us. And there's a lot of distraction out there. Well, this guy seems nice, so maybe I'll give him a chance. Yeah, but he's a smoker and I don't like to date smokers. Yeah, but he's nice and I'm lonely and it's Saturday night. We can talk ourselves into or out of anything. So kudos to you for listening to this podcast and doing the work. Again, it's very important that as we talk about tolerations, we do so from a place of compassion and not judgment. I don't want you to judge yourself. I don't want you to judge the old version of yourself. Like, what was wrong with me? Why did I tolerate that? You were a different person back then than you are now, and a different person than you're becoming. You're becoming the best version of yourself by doing this work. And chances are the pool that you're looking at of men to date, assuming you're heterosexual, or women to date if you're gay, might get smaller and smaller. But here's the cool thing. We only need one. You only need one person to be in a relationship with, unless you're poly. If you're poly, then, I mean, I can't imagine you need 100, but I don't know how many you would need if you're poly, but I'm talking about mutually exclusive, committed relationships. And so no judgment at all. Getting grounded really allows you to have a very clear roadmap, again, as to where you're going. And what it does is it helps you to really honor who you are and respect who you are even more. There are some things, quite frankly, that I have tolerated in the past that there is no way in the world I would tolerate today. No way in the world. And that just tells me, like, I'm taking better care of myself. Some of this is really, it's really about self-love and self-care. And so, again, the more clarity we have about which direction we're going in as we recalculate, the easier this becomes. This being the choices that you make. So when we tolerate something that we're not comfortable with at all, and there's a very fine line here that I'll make the distinction in a moment, the fine line between compromise and toleration. When we tolerate something that we are not willing to tolerate, or that doesn't really feel good inside of us, we are betraying ourselves. And that is not okay. That is never okay. If you betray yourself, like, look yourself in the mirror, again, without judgment, or write in a journal and ask yourself, so what's going on with me? What's going on with me that's allowing me to put up with something that I don't deserve, whether it's verbal abuse or feeling belittled or something more even severe, physical abuse or addiction or infidelity over and over again. So this is all opportunity to reflect on ourselves. But again, the difference between tolerating something and compromising, here's the difference. If you are compromising, all right, I didn't really want to go for Chinese food, but you really love Chinese food, so I'll go there, I'll find something I can eat. That's a compromise. That's not going to hurt you. If, however, you say, okay, I am not a fan of somebody who drinks too much, but makes him happy, so let him drink. Let him drink. So I'll be an enabler and maybe codependent, but that's for another episode. But the point being, when he's drunk, he is nasty to me. He's embarrassing to me. I have to drive. If you're in a situation like that, that's beyond compromise. That's way beyond compromise. That is putting yourself in an unsafe situation, quite frankly. And it could be unsafe physically, or it could be unsafe even emotionally, certainly relationally. So you don't want to betray yourself. Compromises, though, are healthy and necessary. So this time we'll go to your favorite restaurant. Next week we'll go to my favorite restaurant. So being really cognizant of that helps. The 3 levels of tolerance that I wanted to talk about today. The first one is non-negotiables. 0 tolerance. Things that there are behaviors or attitudes or dynamics that you will absolutely not engage in under any circumstance. For example, let's say somebody reaches out to you and they're really interesting to you, but they say, I want intimacy without commitment. Well, if you're looking for a committed relationship, that's not going to work for you. Or if you are a Democrat and you're talking to somebody and he says he's conservative, that might not work for you either. So you need to figure out, and you probably already know at this stage of life, especially after having gone through a divorce, you probably have a lot of clarity about what you are absolutely not willing to negotiate on. When we stand up for ourselves and we don't negotiate on these things that are non-negotiable, we're protecting ourselves, We are taking care of our relational health, our physical health, our mental health. And examples of things that I'm not a fan of the word should, but I'll use it loosely, should not tolerate are disrespect, bullying, having somebody be condescending to you, maybe emotional unavailability. How are you going to have a successful relationship or conversation or conflict resolution with somebody who's emotionally checked out or avoids conflict or avoids resolving conflicts with you? Not going to work. Somebody who is not impeccable with their word. They don't have complete integrity. That's not going to work necessarily. So I think it's important to notice who people are, pay attention to who they are, and ask yourself, am I willing to negotiate on that? This person I found out he's lied to me a few times. For me, deal breaker. Sorry. Inconsistency, lack of follow through, dishonesty at all. Not okay. And these are not your preferences, ladies. These are like black and white, rigid, and I'm not saying you should be rigid about everything. I'm saying you should be clear about what you are absolutely 1,000,000,000% not willing to negotiate on. Once you have that, then you can move on. So that the non-negotiables, that is the first level of tolerance. The second level of tolerance is what I would call core preferences. So these are your high value desires, things that you really want. They're not deal breakers. If he's not super good looking, not a deal breaker, although maybe that is for you. I wouldn't recommend it be, but it might be a preference that he has a certain look. Or if he doesn't have a certain level of education, that might not be a deal breaker for you. You're white collar, he's blue collar, or you're blue collar, he's white collar. Doesn't matter. But maybe it's a preference based on your value system, but it's not necessarily a deal breaker. So intellect, insight, emotional intelligence, these are things that people prefer that, again, are not deal breakers. Maybe you prefer to have somebody who has the same religion as you, politics as you, even spiritual orientation as you. And so, because I think, the truth is they say opposites attract. They may, but I don't know that they sustain over time. I think more the similarities that we have sustain over time. Those relationships. Oftentimes people are looking for somebody who's like a mirror image of themselves. Well, unless you have a twin, and even the twin, even if it's an identical twin, and I have identical twin sisters, so I know a little something about it. They're not exactly alike, not even close. So they definitely have their own personalities, but you don't necessarily need a twin of yourself, but you need somebody who shares really the same basic values as you. That's the most critical piece, I think. So the first, again, level of tolerance is non-negotiables. The second one are your core preferences. Like, what do you really prefer to have in a partner? And then the third one is what I call growth flexibility. So this might be something where you go on a date with somebody. They're very interesting to you, but they're different, very, very different. And it doesn't turn you off necessarily. It actually intrigues you. It makes you curious about them. Like maybe this person can help me grow into a better version of myself, and maybe I can help them do the same. So basically what would I like to say about this is that we're adapting in a relationship, but without betraying ourselves. So again, I like the fact that he grew up in a different religion or a different social class than I grew up in. It makes me curious. And maybe I can learn a little bit about it. Let's say he's really good with numbers, or he's a great chef. He makes wonderful meals. And maybe your mom was a horrible cook, or maybe your mom died when you were young and, your dad couldn't cook and you just ate McDonald's a lot of the time. So this new person can enhance your life. And so you can adapt to the way he does things. He can adapt to the way you do things. But the caveat is, the huge, very critically important caveat here is that you are not betraying yourself in the process, that you are staying strong to your value system and what you're willing and not willing to tolerate, and really having that kind of respect for you. So these differences that I'm talking about are differences that are not a threat to your safety or to who you are as a person. Like, I really think it's kind of cool that he likes to golf. I've never golfed. I've always been interested in golfing. Let's go hit a bucket of balls and see how it goes. Who knows? Maybe you become the next golf pro. You never know. So compromise can be very healthy, but tolerating bullshit, quite frankly, that you're not willing to tolerate is like a cancer. And it really can eat away at you and your relationship for sure. So in summary, that third one, the third tolerance is the growth flexibility. So in summary, we've talked about the differences between compromise and toleration. Compromise is healthy so long as you're not betraying yourself. Tolerating is not okay when you are betraying yourself. And the three kinds of tolerations are the non-negotiables, like I said, the core preferences, your value system, and then growth adaptability. So like the areas in which you're willing to grow. And these, again, I think if you really reflect on them and maybe do some journal writing about it, it will really give you some clarity and you'll feel more grounded in who you are as a person and what you're seeking. So if you want to think about the three categories of tolerance again, and like a little snippet to kind of remind you of them, the non-negotiables, if they had to talk, they would say, protect me. Protect me. If it was a little girl inside of you, let her say to you, protect me. And you can say, the adult can say to her, I got you, girl. I got you. So that's the non-negotiables. You're not going to allow anything into your world that is disrespectful, wrong as you see it, rude, dishonest, abusive, etc. The core preferences would say, let's see if we're compatible. Compatibility. Let's see if we can make this work. These are my preferences. Those are yours. Do we fit like pieces of a puzzle? And the third one, the growth flexibility, that really invites us to adapt. So I want you to think about those things again. Non-negotiables, again, protect me. Core preferences would help me figure out, are we compatible? And the third, the growth flexibility, invites adaptation. Today's journal prompt for you. What have I tolerated in the past that I no longer tolerate? Or what am I currently tolerating that I would like to stop tolerating? And if you're looking at the past, what have I tolerated that I'm no longer willing to tolerate? What I'd ask you to write about is what you did in order to get to that point, from point A to point B. Point A to say, I was willing to tolerate it, and B, no more. I will say this, I will share with you that at the end of my marriage, what it took for me to get to a place of saying no more was knowing that my children were being affected. And I think for a lot of parents, especially a lot of moms, when you know that your kids are being affected, I would say a lot of parents, dads too, when you know your kids are being affected, it makes us step back and look at things a lot differently. So asking yourself, what did it take for you to go from tolerating to not tolerating? Or what would it take if you're tolerating something today that you no longer want to be tolerating? What would it take for you to stop? And that could be asking for help from a friend, going to therapy, or certainly continuing to listen to Divorced Women Dating. So thank you for joining me today. If you have questions, comments, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you can always email me, Stacy@stacyrose.com. That's Stacy with an E. I look forward to seeing you soon. Happy dating.
Thanks for hanging out with me on Divorced Women Dating. Dating after divorce is definitely an adventure. And honestly, it is way more fun when we do it together. Hit subscribe so you don't miss a single moment of the helpful, hopeful, or just really relatable episodes. See you soon.